In the heart of a high-tech alien observation council, a shocking revelation unfolds. The galaxy's most powerful species, the Kreel, have underestimated humanity, gifting Earth with scraps and waste from their own discarded technology. But the humans have used these gifts to craft something far beyond their wildest imagination. The Kreel watch in stunned silence as humanity's response shatters their understanding of power. The observation room was dim, illuminated only by the cold light of the holographic displays flickering in the center of the circular council. 12 alien figures stood around the holographic table, their elongated bodies twisting unnaturally as they stared at the data streams before them. The Kreel were the dominant species in the galaxy, a technologically advanced, war-hardened civilization that had enslaved countless worlds. They had ruled for millennia, never once fearing another species capable of challenging their supremacy. But today, that supremacy was in question. "You're sure of this?" Zalthar, the council leader, asked, his voice as calm and cold as the void itself. His many eyes scanned the data streams, trying to find any sign of error, anything that could explain the anomaly unfolding before him. The communications officer, a nervous creature with chitinous plating, hesitated before answering. "Yes, Commander. The humans, they've done the impossible." The room fell silent, the weight of the words settling in like a dense fog. The Alien Council had sent humanity a simple gift a year ago, a shipment of discarded and obsolete technology. It had been a gesture meant to show the Kreel's benevolence. The humans had been desperate for anything to improve their crude technology, and the Kreel assumed they would never be able to make anything useful out of their scraps. It had been a gift to mock, a token of superiority, yet in the months that followed, the humans did the unthinkable. The transmission flickered and stabilized, revealing an image of the human warship, Fury's Wrath. It was no longer a primitive, underdeveloped vessel, but a massive war machine, sleek and terrifying in its scale. The ship was far more advanced than anything the Kreel had ever seen, coming from a species they had once dismissed as inferior. The Fury's Wrath was a terrifying weapon of war, built from the very scraps the Kreel had thought unworthy of notice. The humans had not only pieced it together, they had made it into something capable of unimaginable destruction. Zalthar's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" "Human ingenuity," the officer said, his voice full of reluctant awe. "They've used the technology we sent them and turned it into something far more dangerous than we ever anticipated. Their weapons, those were never in our files. We have no record of anything like them." Zalthar stepped closer to the display, his hands clenched into fists. The ship's surface gleamed with dark, pulsating energy. From the outside, it appeared deceptively simple, but the power it exuded was overwhelming. "How did they even get their hands on these components?" one of the council members asked, their voice trembling slightly. "These are ancient designs, far beyond anything they should have been able to understand," the officer swallowed nervously. "It appears they reverse-engineered our technology. They're using our own methods against us, with pieces we discarded without a second thought. And it's not just their weaponry. Their systems they've synchronized everything: propulsion, cloaking, energy shields, all in ways we've never seen before." Zalthar turned, his face contorted with rage. "You're telling me that these humans, these primitives, are capable of not only understanding but improving upon our technology?" "Yes," the officer admitted reluctantly. "And they've already begun testing the ship's capabilities. We believe they are ready for combat." A long, suffocating silence filled the room as the full weight of the situation sank in. The Kreel, the most powerful species in the galaxy, were facing a new threat, a species they had ignored, mocked, and underestimated. "They can't be allowed to survive this," one of the council members said, his voice full of unease. They cannot be allowed to build more of these warships. They'll be unstoppable. Zalthar's eyes flickered to the officer. Send the fleet. Deploy everything we have. We will crush them before they can rise any further. They must know their place. But the officer hesitated. Commander, there's something more. We've intercepted a message from the humans. They've sent a warning. Zalthar's expression darkened. A warning? The officer activated the transmission. It flickered for a moment before a human voice rang through the speakers, calm and composed. This is Commander Sarah Lawson of the Fury's Wrath, the voice said. You gave us junk. You gave us your scraps. And now we've built a ship that will tear your empire apart. If you choose to attack us, you'll find that your superior technology won't save you. This is your last chance. Leave us be, or face the consequences. The council fell into stunned silence once more, the cold words hanging in the air. It was a threat, a promise, spoken without fear, without hesitation. Zalthar's fists clenched tighter. They dare to defy us. He turned sharply toward the officer. Prepare the fleet. We will show them the true meaning of power. But in the depths of space, far beyond the reach of the Kreel, the Fury's Wrath continued to drift forward, its dark, terrifying form, a silent promise that humanity would no longer be ignored. And with every passing moment, the galaxy's most dangerous species would learn what it meant to give humanity nothing but scraps. The Kreel fleet sets out to destroy humanity's newly revealed warship, Fury's Wrath. But they are met with unexpected resistance. As they prepare for battle, the humans activate the full might of their terrifying new weapon, showcasing the terrifying power of their reverse-engineered technology. The Kreel struggle to comprehend the scale of humanity's ingenuity and resilience. In the silence of deep space, the Kreel fleet prepared for battle. The vast armada of alien ships, towering and sleek, with their advanced propulsion systems and superior weaponry, glided through the void like predators on the hunt. Their mission was clear: destroy the human ship, Fury's Wrath, and wipe humanity from the galaxy once and for all. What was once seen as a nuisance, a simple primitive race, had now become an existential threat. All ships in position, Zalthar, the council leader, announced, his voice cold and authoritative. We strike now. No mercy. The officers around him nodded, their faces taut with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. For the Kreel, this was a matter of pride. A species they had written off as insignificant had now dared to challenge them. Humanity had awakened a fury that the galaxy would never forget. Zalthar stood on the command deck of the flagship, the scythe, watching as the holographic map of the battle area shimmered before him. The Fury's Wrath was still where it had been when they had first spotted it. The humans had shown no sign of fleeing, no attempt to hide. They were simply waiting, like a cornered animal ready to strike. Zalthar's fingers hovered over the controls as he spoke into the comm. Prepare all weapons. We will not make the mistake of underestimating them again. This ends now. The alien fleet readied its weapons, and in an instant the first volleys of energy were fired. The beams of deadly light cut through space, carving a path toward the human ship. The Kreel had calculated their trajectory, optimized for a quick and decisive strike. But as the energy blasts neared the Fury's Wrath, something unexpected happened. The human ship shimmered and disappeared. What is this?" Zalthar demanded, his voice rising with panic. "Where did they go?" "Commander, it's gone." An officer shouted, his voice trembling. "It cloaked itself, completely disappeared from our sensors." Zalthar's eyes widened in disbelief. "How? That technology was never in the data we recovered. They shouldn't have been able to use it, let alone improve upon it." The fleet's weapons systems fired again, hoping to hit something, anything, but the Fury's Wrath had already vanished. The Kreel had expected a fight, but this was something entirely new. Humanity's ship was no longer just a target. It was a shadow, a ghost in the darkness, capable of slipping away without a trace. For a moment there was silence. Then it was broken by the cold, calculated voice of Commander Sarah Lawson, the human leader of the Fury's wrath. "Your arrogance will be your downfall," she said, her voice cutting through the comms with chilling certainty. "You gave us scraps. You thought we would crumble, but instead we've built the perfect weapon, the perfect warship." The voice echoed across the fleet, a taunt, a challenge. Zalthar clenched his fists, furious. "Bring them back! Find them! Do not allow them to escape!" Suddenly, the Fury's wrath reappeared, not in one place, but in several, multiple holographic. Decoys shimmered into existence across the battlefield, each one a perfect replica of the human ship. It was a tactic straight out of their playbook, but on a scale they had never encountered. The Kreel ships fired in all directions, but each blast passed harmlessly through the holographic projections. The Fury's wrath was playing with them, using their own advanced technology against them. The battle turned chaotic. The Indomitable, the human ship's true form, emerged from the darkness, its weapons primed, its systems synced. The Kreel fleet was disoriented, firing blindly at the decoys while the real ship closed in on them. The Indomitable's first strike hit the scythe directly, its energy pulse tearing through the Kreel flagship's outer shields. The shockwave reverberated through the fleet, and several smaller Kreel ships were immediately disabled, their systems fried by the force of the blast. Zalthar gripped the edge of his command table, eyes wide with disbelief. "Return fire! Full! Power to the weapons! Bring them down!" The Fury's wrath responded with terrifying efficiency. Its weapons systems were unlike anything the Kreel had ever seen before. Energy blasts carved through the alien ships like paper, and the human ship moved with inhuman precision, dodging and striking with perfect timing. It wasn't just a battle of technology, it was a battle of wills, and humanity was proving to be far more determined than Zalthar had ever imagined. "Deploy the war drones," Zalthar ordered, his voice shaky now. "We cannot let them have the upper hand. Engage them at close range." Hundreds of small Kreel war drones detached from the flagship, swarming toward the Indomitable in an attempt to overwhelm it. The drones were small, fast, and designed for rapid combat, but they were not equipped to deal with the full power of humanity's new warship. The Fury's wrath tore through the swarm with ease, its cannons flashing as each drone was obliterated. "In a single shot, nothing is working," one of the officers shouted. "Their ship, it's faster than anything we've ever encountered." Zalthar's mind raced, trying to find a way out. This wasn't supposed to be possible. The humans were supposed to be weak, helpless, fodder for the Kreel war machine, but now they were the ones on the defensive. The Indomitable had become a living nightmare, a force of destruction unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Commander," an officer cried out, "their cloaking device, it's emitting a pulse, they're preparing something." Zalthar's heart skipped a beat. "What kind of pulse? What is it?" Before anyone could respond, the Fury's wrath activated its final weapon, a pulse so powerful it sent a ripple through the very fabric of space. The shockwave hit the Kreel ships like a tidal wave, knocking them out of their formation, tearing apart their shields and scrambling their systems. The pulse hit the scythe directly, and in an instant the flagship systems collapsed. The once proud ship groaned and shuddered as its core was breached. An explosion ripped through the Kreel flagship, sending debris scattering into the darkness of space. Zalthar was thrown from his feet as the ship groaned under the impact. He barely managed to stay conscious as the last of the power flickered. Out on the command deck, his vision blurred and the sounds of chaos filled the air. His once mighty fleet was crumbling before him, their technology useless against the human warship. The Fury's wrath had done it. They had crushed the Kreel. Fleet-dodged Zalthar struggled to his knees, his mind reeling. This wasn't just a defeat, it was an extinction-level event. The Creel, for all their might and arrogance, had been outclassed by the very species they had looked down upon. A voice crackled through the comms once more, and Sarah Lawson's cold, calculated words reached Zalthar's ears. "You gave us junk, and now you'll pay the price. Humanity is here to stay. This is only the beginning." Zalthar's hands trembled as he gripped the shattered console. There was no escaping the truth now. The humans had not only survived, they had built a weapon capable of toppling the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Creel, reeling from their devastating defeat, scrambled to recover. With the Fury's wrath and its terrifying technology threatening the galaxy, Zalthar and the remaining Creel forces make a desperate attempt to counterattack. But humanity's ingenuity proves to be more than just weaponry. Humanity's resilience and determination are the true forces driving their victory. The Creel are forced to confront the depths of their underestimation of Earth. Zalthar's hands shook as he stood on the ruins of the once mighty Creel flagship, the Scythe. His mind was numb, a haze of disbelief clouding his thoughts. The Furies' wrath had struck them with a ferocity they had never anticipated, crippling their fleet with a single, well-executed attack. The Creel had been renowned for their military prowess, their ships designed for overwhelming power and speed, but the humans had turned their own discarded technology into a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Now, they were left with nothing but the shattered remnants of their fleet. "Commander, we have incoming," one of the officers said, their voice trembling. Zalthar turned sharply, his gaze narrowing on the holographic display in front of him. The remnants of his fleet, what little remained after the pulse strike, were struggling to regroup, but it was clear they were no match for the human warship. The Fury's wrath was closing in once again. Zalthar's mind raced. He had been in countless battles, seen the rise and fall of empires, but never had he faced an enemy like this. Humanity had always been dismissed as weak, an insignificant species on a backwater planet. But now they had proven themselves as a force to be reckoned with. The Fury's wrath was not just a ship, it was a symbol of humanity's defiance, their ingenuity, and their unyielding will to survive. "Prepare the remaining fleet for one final assault," Zalthar ordered, his voice cold. "We will not let them take us without a fight." But as he looked out at the ruined ships, his heart sank. It was a futile attempt. They were already outmatched, their systems compromised beyond repair. The humans had already shown their strength, their ability to adapt and overcome any obstacle. But Zalthar had no choice. He couldn't allow the Creel to be wiped out completely, not after all they had built, all they had conquered. This was their last stand. On the Fury's wrath, Commander Sarah Lawson watched as the Creel fleet regrouped. It was a desperate move, one that reeked of pride and defiance. But Sarah wasn't fooled. She knew that after the beating the Creel had taken, they would never recover. The Fury's wrath was not just about power, it was about humanity's ingenuity, their refusal to accept defeat, and their unshakable determination. "All systems are ready," her lieutenant said, her voice steady, but there was an edge of anticipation in it. "They're preparing to fight again." Sarah nodded, her face grim. "Let them. We'll show them what happens when you push humanity to the edge." The Fury's wrath glided through space, its weapons powered and ready for the next round. Sarah knew the Creel had no chance against the ship they had built, the ship humanity had designed from scraps. But the fight wasn't just about victory, it was about sending a message. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long. Today, they would see what humans were truly capable of. "Target their weak points," Sarah ordered. "No mercy. We finish this today." Her hands moved quickly over the controls, and the Fury's wrath launched a volley of energy beams. The Creel ships, though stubborn, could not react quickly enough. Their shields had already been weakened, their systems overtaxed by the previous battle. One by one, the remaining Kreel vessels exploded in a series of bright flashes, their destruction, a testament to the overwhelming power of humanity's ship. "Commander, their flagship is holding back," the lieutenant observed, her eyes scanning the screen. "Zalthar is still on board. He's not giving up." Sarah's lips curled into a grim smile. "Let him hold out. The longer he does, the more time we have to make our point." As the last few Kreel ships disintegrated, the Fury's Wrath moved toward the Scythe, the alien flagship. The destruction was methodical, every shot designed to cripple and destroy. Zalthar, though defeated, was stubborn. He would not go down without a fight. But Sarah knew deep in her bones, that this was the end for the Kreel. There was no coming back from this. Not after humanity had shown them the full force of their power. On the bridge of the Scythe, Zalthar gritted his teeth. His ships were falling, his fleet decimated, but he refused to surrender. His pride was the last thing he had left. "Commander, they're closing in on us," one of his officers said, their voice shaking. "We can't outrun them. We're out of time." Zalthar stood tall, even in the face of defeat. He could feel the weight of his people's hopes pressing down on him. They had built an empire that spanned galaxies. He couldn't let it crumble now, not without one last fight. "Prepare. The final defense systems," Zalthar ordered. "Activate all remaining weaponry. We'll take them down with us if we have to." But as the final defensive systems powered up, the Fury's Wrath loomed closer, its weapons poised for the final strike. Zalthar knew it was over. The Kreel had failed, and humanity had won. He stood motionless as the Fury's Wrath unleashed its final barrage of energy beams. The flagship's shields flickered and died, and in the next moment the entire ship was consumed by a fiery explosion. Zalthar's vision went dark as the shockwave tore through the heart of the Kreel fleet. In the aftermath of the battle, the Fury's Wrath hovered in space. The destruction of the Kreel fleet scattered across the black expanse. The galaxy had witnessed the fall of an empire, brought down by a species once thought insignificant. The Kreel had underestimated humanity, and, now, they would never forget the cost of that mistake. Sarah Lawson stood on the bridge of the Fury's Wrath, her hands resting lightly on the console. Her crew was silent, their faces showing no signs of triumph or celebration. They had fought not for glory, but for survival, for a future among the stars. "We did it," her lieutenant said quietly, breaking the silence. "We've destroyed the Kreel." Sarah nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. "No," she said softly. "We've shown the galaxy who we are. We've shown them that humanity will not be silenced. We've earned our place among the stars." As the Fury's Wrath drifted through the darkness, Sarah's mind raced with the implications of their victory. This was just the beginning. Humanity had proven their strength, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Kreel Empire has fallen, and the remnants of their once mighty fleet are scattered across space. As the Fury's Wrath hovers in the aftermath, Sarah Lawson and her crew prepare for the next phase of humanity's emergence into the galactic stage. With the defeat of the Kreel, humanity has earned its place among the stars, but there are still other empires to reckon with. The galaxy now knows what happens when humanity is pushed too far. The remnants of the Kreel fleet were little more than debris now, floating in the black emptiness of space. The Fury's Wrath hovered in the void, its hull scarred but undiminished. Sarah Lawson stood at the command console, her hands gripping the edges as she looked out at the wreckage. The Kreel had been obliterated, every ship, every vessel reduced to fragments, but despite the victory, there was no celebration, no cheers, no dancing. Humanity had not fought for glory, but for survival. The battle had been brutal, and while they had emerged victorious, the cost had been heavy. Sarah's mind lingered on the lives lost, the families torn apart, the suffering endured by her people. They had won the war, but at what cost? "Commander," Lieutenant Stone's voice broke the silence, pulling Sarah from her thoughts. "We've received a transmission from the Zikari Empire." The mention of the Zikari sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. The Zikari were one of the oldest and most powerful empires in the galaxy. For centuries, they had ruled with an iron fist, their technology unmatched. And now, humanity had just toppled the Kreel, their ancient rivals. What would the Zikari make of that? "Put it through," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. The screen flickered, and a new image appeared. A tall, humanoid figure covered in ornate armor, their eyes glowing with a fierce predatory light. The Zikari ambassador Kivrath appeared on the screen, his voice smooth and commanding. "Humanity!" Kivrath's voice boomed, each word dripping with disdain. "The Kreel are defeated. You have proven your strength, but do not mistake your victory for supremacy. The Zikari Empire does not tolerate insolence. We will not bow to the likes of you." Sarah stood tall as Kivrath continued, his words sharp and threatening. "You may have defeated the Kreel, but we will not make the same mistake. We know who you are now, and we will show you the true meaning of power." The transmission flickered, and Kivrath's image disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Sarah standing in stunned silence. The Zikari had taken notice. They had seen humanity's rise, and they were preparing to strike. "Commander, what do we do?" Lieutenant Stone asked, her voice laced with concern. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing. She knew the Zikari would come. There was no question about it. They were a powerful force, and they would not let a species like humanity go unchallenged. But the question wasn't what the Zikari would do. It was what humanity would do in return. "We stand ready," Sarah said, her voice firm. "We don't back down. We never back down." The crew of the Fury's Wrath worked quickly, preparing the ship for the next phase. Sarah knew that the Zikari would be formidable, but humanity's resolve was unwavering. The battle against the Kreel had been a statement, a declaration that humanity would no longer be seen as weak. Now the galaxy would have to reckon with the fact that humanity was no longer a fledgling species, but a power in its own right. As the Fury's Wrath powered up, Sarah stared out at the wreckage of the Kreel fleet once more. The darkness of space stretched infinitely before her, but for the first time, she no longer felt small. Humanity had earned its place in the stars, and while the Zikari might come for them, they would find that humanity was ready. "We will not be intimidated," Sarah whispered to herself. "We've survived worse, and we will survive this." Far away, on the borders of the galaxy, the Zikari Empire was already mobilizing its fleet. Massive warships, adorned with the Empire's signature red and black insignia, began to power up their weapons, preparing for the inevitable clash with humanity. The Zikari had underestimated the Kreel, and they would not make the same mistake again. But what the Zikari didn't understand was that humanity had no fear left to lose. The fight against the Kreel had been humanity's awakening, a realization that they could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest powers, and they would not stop until they had earned their place. Back aboard the Fury's Wrath, Sarah Lawson stood on the bridge, watching as the stars stretched out before them. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and unknowns, but humanity was no longer a helpless species clinging to survival. They were now a force in the galaxy, a power that had proven its strength. "All systems are green," Lieutenant Stone reported. "We're ready to engage at any time." Sarah nodded, her face set with determination. "Good. Then let's show the Zikari what happens when you push humanity too far." The Fury's Wrath moved forward, its engines humming as it cut through space. The galaxy was vast, but humanity now had its place within it. The war against the Kreel was over, but the true fight had just begun. The Zekari would come, and they would try to crush humanity like they had done with so many before. But humanity had learned from the Kreel, and they had learned fast. The Fury's wrath glided silently into the unknown, a symbol of humanity's resilience. The galaxy would never be the same again. The old empires would learn that humanity was no longer just a fledgling species. They were a force to be reckoned with, and in the end, the galaxy would be forced to bow. Not to the Zekari, not to the Kreel, but to humanity.